Welcome into another edition of Legal Access, brought to you by the Maguire Law Firm. And if you're trying to avoid the rain, staying inside to watch the show today, we appreciate that. We seeded the clouds so it would rain and you'd be watching us, so we're just trying to take advantage of it here today. Our topic today is workers' compensation. If you've been hurt on the job or maybe know somebody who has, and you have questions about what you should do and what you shouldn't do, today is the day for you. Make sure and give us a call. Phone number's on your screen, 843-848-8080, as we're talking about workers' compensation. And here on our panel today to answer those questions from the Maguire Law Firm, first of all, it's Brittany Jones.
Hey, Dave.
And also want to welcome in Natasha Hanna.
Thank you.
And that's our, appreciate you coming here and braving the rain, braving the weather.
That's right. We're super excited to have Natasha with us today. She practices a lot of workers' comp, right? But also some other things. Tell us a little bit more about your firm. Where are you guys located? What else do you practice?
Yeah, sure. We're right here, right in Myrtle Beach off of 48th Avenue North. And you're right, we do have a varying degree of types of law that we practice. We do personal injury and workers' comp, which pretty much go hand in hand. A little bit of criminal defense. And then the other side of the house, we do real estate closings.
Okay, that's
pretty
awesome.
wide variety.
Yeah,
love it all.
Great.
Now, as far as workers' compensation is concerned, if somebody's hurt on the job, they might say to themselves, well, I can handle this all myself, but what are some of the pitfalls if somebody thinks that they'll be able to handle this themselves against the insurance companies? How's that going to work for them?
Well, first off, you don't know what you don't know. And for workers' comp especially, Natasha mentioned just a second ago, workers' comp and personal injury going hand in hand. And what we see a lot of times is what we call third-party liability claims, where you have both the option to have both types of claims. And unless you are with an attorney that specifically handles both of those types of cases, there are all kinds of ways that you can mess that up. Specifically, if you settle one before the other, you can really forfeit your right to go after the other. So very important that you are with someone that regularly practices in both of those areas. The first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that can go wrong. For example, in workers' comp, the workers' comp carrier has a right to control the medical, and in personal injury, you can go to whoever you want to. So those are some challenges that people don't realize.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's start at the beginning. What are the procedures? If you get hurt on the job, what do you need to do and what does the employer need to do to make sure that you're taken care of?
First and foremost, make sure that you're okay, make sure that you're safe, make sure that you get EMS care if needed. If it's something that is not urgent, that requires medical treatment by ambulance to a hospital, then the first thing you do is you report it to your employer. That is key, to let your supervisor know, to let the owner of the company know, so that they can make sure they immediately file a claim and document what's going on. Then after that, typically what happens is the employer lets their insurance company know what has happened, and then the employer's insurance company then decides where you go for medical treatment. If it's not something that requires an emergency room, they typically send them to like a urgent care or doctor's care locally. And then the ball gets rolling, depending on the severity of the injury.
What's your advice to somebody if they get hurt on the job but the employer says, hey, listen, let's just keep this between us. I'll take care of all your meds. Just don't report this as being an accident-related job.
Yeah,
job-related accident, sorry.
We do hear that. Not a lot, but it's certainly things that I know we've all run across before. And what I would tell the employers first is, this is why you have workers' comp insurance. It's no different than having health insurance. You pay for it. That's what it's there for, and you should want to make sure that your employees are taken care of and they get the right treatment. What I would say to the employee that's gotten hurt, do not do that. When you go to the emergency room, when you go to the doctor, you tell them exactly how you got hurt. To be honest, because that can really bite somebody on the end when your injury is far more severe, and you've gone to the doctor and hadn't mentioned that it's work related. So it's absolutely key to be honest, number one, and then to report that.
Regardless of how good of a friend you are with your employer or your boss, I mean, you're not suing them, you're opening a claim against the insurance. So a lot of people are reluctant to do that because they think that they're going to be on the outs with their employer because they've filed a claim.
That's right.
And truthfully, if you're good friends, your friend ought to want you to get the medical treatment that you need, and you may as well, just like you said, to use that insurance that you've got in place for that exact reason.
Now, as far as workers' comp insurance is concerned, who needs it? Who has to have workers' comp insurance as an employer or a business?
Yeah, in the state of South Carolina, if you have 4 or more employees, then you have to have workers' comp coverage. And really, it doesn't matter if it's a law firm or a construction company, it's always wise to have that coverage in case your employees are running errands. And in our busy
Right.
highway town, it's not unusual for somebody to get in a wreck while they're running an employee errand, regardless of how physical the job is.
And you can choose, right, to have it even if you have fewer employees, just to go ahead and have an extra layer of protection,
Good point.
right, for yourself. So even if you have a small business that maybe you don't always, maybe sometimes you have more employees than that, but not always, I think it's something good to have. Insurance is always something good to have, right? Better safe than sorry, for sure.
If you're a business and you have less than 4 employees and somebody gets hurt and you don't have comp insurance, what can that do to you as far as your bottom line, as far as paying out for all the meds are concerned?
So I'm sorry, you said if you do have less than 4?
If you've got less than 4, but you
Yeah.
don't have comp insurance, and somebody gets hurt on the job.
Yeah, so in that case, it might be then that they're only, depending on, of course, it depends, right? Our favorite line. But depending on how they get hurt, it might be then that the only option that employee has is to have just a personal injury claim against your business. If it was maybe they tripped and fell while they were at work, or got into a car accident while driving for work, or whatever it is, and it might be that is their only option.
You were talking about some of the accidents, tripping and falling and stuff like that at work. I mean, does workers' comp insurance cover any accident, whether regardless of how severe it might be?
As long as you are carrying out your job duties, you're within the course and scope of your employment, then workers' comp should cover it.
Yeah, exactly. Keywords, as long as it's in the course and scope. And there have been some examples where people got in fights at work, like fist fights at work. And people are like, well, there's no way that's covered under workers' comp. But if you're fighting over an issue, or another co-employee attacked you over an issue that's related to work, I've seen everything from fighting over a table at a restaurant between 2 waiters, or another employee attacked another employee for a nefarious reason. So yeah, so that happens.
Yeah.
Overzealous employees, they want to, okay, I totally understand. Tell you what, our phone lines are open. The phone number's on your screen. If you have any questions about workers' compensation, that's our topic here today. 843-848-8080. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions for you here today. Now, as far as people going to and from work, I mean, if they're leaving home and they're heading to work, is there any kind of coverage for a person who is on their way to work, or leaving work and on their way home?
I'm going to follow her lead and say it depends. So very good question. That's what we also call the coming and going rule. So it really depends on the nature of the employment, if they were in a company car at the time, if they were, it depends on the nature of how they were paid, if they're a salaried employee, if they were on their way to work. I mean, I've had a case even one time where an employee pulled into the parking lot and was walking into the door to work and slipped and fell in the parking lot, and the carrier tried to argue that was not, because they had not officially clocked in, but
Yeah.
we were successful in that claim because they were right on the verge of going to work. So
I guess along those same lines, we'll go ahead and go into it. Brittany alluded to it earlier, the third-party claims. If you are on the road in a company vehicle, whether you're going and coming, or whether you're doing just an errand while you're at work, or whether you're going to a job to work on somebody's air conditioning unit, get into an accident and it's somebody else's fault, and as far as the automobile accident is concerned, not only will you have the one claim as far as the workers' comp claim, but you also have the third-party claim, what they call it, as far as the person who injured you in the automobile accident.
yes, you know this stuff very well. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. So in the event you're sitting in a traffic light in a company car while you're at work and someone rear ends you, you're exactly right. You have 2 claims. You have a workers' comp claim because you're on the job, and then you also have a personal injury claim against the person that hit you. And that can get, I mean, it's actually a good thing that it happens like that, because then you have your medical taken care of immediately with workers' comp, but it also can get extremely complicated because, as she said earlier, you have to make sure that you have filed that workers' comp claim and you don't settle it before you understand what's going on with your third-party claim.
All right, tell you what, we're going to run to a break here real quick. When we get back, we'd love to talk to you. If you have any questions about workers' compensation, today is your day. Don't be shy. Give us a call, 843-848-8080. We'll be back in just a second here. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the Maguire Law Firm. Welcome back. It's Legal Access. We're talking about workers' compensation here today. If you've got any kind of questions for us, make sure you give us a call. Phone number is 843-848-8080. Call us here today. We'll get you on the air. Don't wait to the very end of the show, though, to try to get your call in. A lot of times we might not be able to fit you in. Let's go ahead and see whether or not, and we have Rick O'Neill joining us here at the end of the table, so appreciate you making it in here. I know there's a lot of traffic out there, so leave earlier next time.
Okay.
No,
All right,
we're glad to have Rick.
That's
Well, better late than never, right?
Yes.
Some accidents that might occur at work are very easy to define. I mean, if you're bleeding or you're broken something, but what if you've got something that is described as a soft tissue injury? If you've hurt your back or you've hurt some other part of your body from something that's not quite as obvious, is that harder to get any kind of settlement with?
So it could be harder, but it is definitely still something that is compensable. And a lot of times, I think that people are a little bit more hesitant to bring these, we call them repetitive trauma type injuries. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, it didn't happen, just like that. So I don't know if I should bring it up or mention it to my employer. But those types of injuries as well are still something that are covered under workers' comp, whether you type all the time and
Right.
you get an injury that way, or you work on on a line doing the same motion over and over again, and over time that wears you down. Those things are definitely still covered under workers' comp.
From what I've understood from talking to some workers' comp individuals, they say that like hernias are hard to prove as far as whether or not it did occur at work.
Yeah, that can be true. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably the most
depends.
challenging
all right.
case, yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
Sure.
Repetitive trauma, so like you said, carpal tunnel, even though you are doing the same thing over and over, or the same thing with lifting large boxes, even if you got support around your back or whatever, if you're lifting things over and over, I mean, do you need a doctor to come in and say, yes, this accident is caused by doing this over and over again?
Yeah, so usually we would have, there would be a doctor that would relate that injury to the type of motion that you're doing at work, for sure.
As far as employees are concerned, there's a lot of people out there in the gig economy who are doing a lot of different things, whether they're driving for some of the rideshare places, or whether they're delivering pizza, or whether they're doing whatever else might be. I mean, what if somebody is driving for Uber or Lyft or something like that and get into an accident? Is that some sort of a problem? I know that there's some legislation out there trying to look at some of that stuff.
You're talking about if you're a passenger
No,
in a Lyft vehicle?
No,
or
if
the
you're
driver?
if you're the driver.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of experience with that quite yet. I've had people who were hit by different
Right.
cab companies, but I haven't had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, Dave,
Yeah, have you?
those type of gig employees are going to be considered a 1099 currently under our laws here on the East Coast. I know the West Coast are trying to get more benefits for the gig economy workers, but you're going to be considered an independent contractor, and there won't be any workers' comp generally available to you.
So 1099 is kind of out of luck. What about part-time employees?
Well, that's another sort of gray area. I mean, I think if you're on, if you just started, you're probably going to be covered. If you're just a temporary employee there for the day, probably there's going to be a question whether you're going to be covered or not under workers' comp.
I know with COVID is a couple of years removed though right now, but a lot of people started working from home and working remotely, and some people are continuing to do that. If you're working at home but you're still on the clock per se, and you get hurt somehow at your own home, is that compensable as far as a workers' comp claim?
Yes, it can be. And one thing that we often tell employers even, and employers look at it from that perspective, is you want to make sure that the home environment is one that is set up as if you would have it in your own office. Make sure it's safe, make sure, cable wires, things like that. So make sure you know where your employee is actually working. And then from the employee standpoint, you really can. There's actually been case law out there where someone tripped and fell down their steps, and the argument became whether they were walking to breakfast or whether they were walking to their office to work. So it has opened up a myriad of complicated questions, but yes, it can be compensable.
We have a lot of construction sites here along the Grand Strand. If somebody's a contractor or a subcontractor and their one of their crew members get hurt, who might be responsible for seeing that their meds are taken care of?
Yeah, that's a really good question because a lot of contractors don't understand this, that when they hire subs, they really need to make sure that those subcontractors have workers' comp coverage, because if not, the general contractor can be held liable as an upstream employer. And we've seen that many times. And when somebody's hurt, they're injured, and the general contractor doesn't know that person, did not hire them, and they're really hurt and they need coverage and they need medical care. So you got to make sure that your subs have that coverage. Don't just ask them, get a copy of that certificate of insurance.
All right, you've got some construction things you want to do around your home, and you've got a handyman that you're aware works. He might not be incorporated as an LLC, but he's known as being kind of a handyman around the area. He comes to your place, gets hurt in the course and scope of him working around your house. Are you responsible for his injuries if he doesn't have any comp insurance?
You could be.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally, a one-man operation like that may be considered an independent contractor, but you still will have just general liability exposure that you had some unsafe condition or something like that on your property that contributed to his injury. I mean, before I would let someone on my property, I'd want to make sure that they had workers' compensation, even if it was just a small operation,
Right.
1 or 2 people.
I tell you what, we're going to run to another break here real quick. When we get back, we'll have about 10 minutes left. That's plenty of time for you to get your calls in. You've been waiting to call. Don't wait any longer. Give us a call. The phone number's on your screen, 843-848-8080. We're talking about workers' compensation here today on Legal Access, brought to you by the Maguire Law Firm. Welcome back. It is Legal Access, brought to you by the Maguire Law Firm, here to answer your questions. Still got a little bit under 10 minutes left. If you want to get a call in, the phone number's on your screen. We'd love to answer your questions for you. Here on the panel to do so, we've got Brittany Jones from the Maguire Law Firm, also Natasha Hanna and Rick O'Neill. So we're well equipped to answer any question that you might have about workers' comp or any other kind of personal injury. So give us a call again, 843-848-8080. As we talked about earlier in the show, I mean, as far as your employer is concerned, they're required to try to get you medical help. Are you allowed to get a second opinion if you go to a doctor and they say, oh, there's nothing wrong with you?
Yeah, so usually when that transpires, the client has usually gone through the workup, through the urgent care, then on to maybe a specialist, and the specialist says, okay, you're fine. But our clients come to us and they say, yeah, I know my doctor says I'm fine, but I'm really feeling this incredible pain. So the proper procedure is for the attorney to reach out to the carrier or the attorney, if there is one, on the other side and ask for the second opinion.
Right.
And so they actually have a right to give that second opinion, and if they choose not to, then at that point in time, your client can go see the doctor of their choice.
Sometimes a workers' comp attorney will retain an expert witness to give an individual private consultation for the employee, but that's going to be at their cost. It's not going to be covered by workers' comp. Another thing that people sometimes have a hard time understanding is health insurance generally is not going to cover anything that's where there's workers' compensation involved. Because they're going to say it's not our responsibility, primary workers' comp insurance should do that. And even if you try to apply it to your health insurance, it's going to eventually, they're going to find out about it when they get the records, and they're going to deny coverage.
Right. Now, as far as getting money, well, if you get workers' comp, if you get a settlement, how much can you expect to get on a regular basis as far as payments?
You're talking about like each week?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little bit easier than the final settlement. So in workers' comp, it's based on your average weekly wage. So depending upon how long you've been there, it's the last 2 quarters. How many quarters are help me on here?
The last year, last 4 quarters.
Okay, yes, the last 4 quarters. It's your average weekly wage. They take that average weekly wage, and you're entitled to 66 2/3 to come up with your comp rate or your weekly check.
So for example, if you're making $600 a week, then your workers' comp disability check is going to be $400, but that's going to be tax-free.
Right. And how long does that last? I mean, when does the doctor determine that you're going to be okay to go back to work?
So that's dependent upon the injury. You know, they can have you stay, I know, depends. It depends on whether the injury is so severe that it knocks you completely out of your job.
Right.
Or it might be a situation where you can return to work but on a light duty status.
Right.
So you could stay on, we call it temporary total disability, those weekly checks. You could stay on it until you reach MMI, which is where you absolutely are good to go and you can go
Right.
back to work, or it could be on a part-time basis or a light duty basis.
MMI is maximum medical improvement, or?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Good job.
I thought it was.
Good job.
All right, speaking of light duty, what if your doctor says you can go back to work and do light duty, but your job has nothing that qualifies as being light duty?
Well, that's a common sort of, you're between a rock and a hard place, because the insurance wants you back at work, so they're not paying those weekly disability checks. And the employer's like, hey, you're a construction worker. We have no light duty. You're not even allowed on the job site unless you're able to do all the job duties. So, you know, that's sometimes as an attorney is where we have to get involved, call and explain to the employer. Don't let the insurance company force you or pressure you into accepting an employee that you don't have light duty. You know, a lot of times it's just a negotiation to keep the person on disability payments until they're ready to go back to work and do their duties.
We talked about payments. I mean, if it's a very severe accident of some sort, can that transition into Social Security disability somewhere down the road?
Sure.
You want to take that?
I think it's possible, yeah. Sure.
Well, I'll take it. Yeah, a lot of times there is an overlap with Social Security disability and workers' compensation. One thing that you have to be careful about is if you've been on workers' comp for an extended period of time, you have to have worked at least 5 of the last 10 years generally to get disability.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes you have to apply for Social Security disability while the workers' compensation claim is still ongoing, just to protect your rights to get Social Security disability.
What if you're working a job and you get hurt on the job and you are getting workers' compensation, and it was a job that you really didn't like in the first place and you were in the process of trying to quit? What would your suggestion be to somebody who wants to quit this job that they're in the middle of trying to see whether or not you can get workers' comp from?
It's a bad idea, because if a doctor does put you on light duty, and if you've switched employers, the new employer doesn't have any incentive to provide you light duty. They're going to say, hey, you can't do the job, you're fired. And then you're out there sort of in no man's land. So it's generally, you should consult an attorney, even if you're not currently represented by one, just to talk that out. It's a real sticky situation, and generally you should try to avoid switching jobs or quitting a job while a claim is ongoing.
Right.
I will say though that, you know, sometimes as part of the settlement, something that gets negotiated is that person resigns from their job. So, you know, you might have to stick it out for while the claim is pending, but that is something that often happens at the end of a claim, or is not uncommon to happen at the end of a claim as part of a settlement.
And as far as consultations are concerned, most attorneys who handle workers' compensation will do consultations absolutely free. So don't be afraid to give somebody a call and find out whether or not you do have a case moving forward. There are a lot of great attorneys in the area that can help you with that, in addition to the ones we have on our panel here today. That's just about all the time that we have here today. If you have any further questions about workers' compensation that you didn't call in for today, make sure and give us an email. Our email address here is legalaccess@wmbfnews.com. You can email us and we'll email you back and give you the answer to your question here today. But like I said, don't be afraid to call a workers' comp attorney to get a free consultation for your situation, whatever's going on right now. Again, that's legalaccess@wmbfnews.com. I want to thank our panel here today, Brittany Jones from the Maguire Law Firm, also Natasha Hanna and Rick O'Neill. Thanks for being here today and braving the rain and the weather. And you make sure to be careful out there, because it is kind of slick and kind of wet. And it's going to be like that for the next few days from the way it looks. Next week when we get together, we're going to be talking about premises liability if you've been hurt on somebody else's premises and what you need to do in that case. That's next week's topic. And again, if you want to get your question in advance, you can email us in advance. legalaccess@wmbfnews.com. Again, next week, premises liability, next Thursday at 12:30. Make sure you've got it set up on your television to record automatically. Like and subscribe, whatever it is, I don't care. All right, we'll see you again next week. Premises liability, that'll be our topic here on Legal Access, brought to you by the Maguire Law Firm.
You may wish to consult a lawyer to obtain case-specific legal advice. Information regarding lawyers can be located online or by contacting the South Carolina Bar Lawyer Referral Service, toll-free at 1-800-868-2284. If you are currently represented by an attorney, you should direct all legal questions to your attorney. The nature of any legal issue may depend on a multitude of factors. Therefore, the information provided in this program is purposefully broad and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact and retain an attorney in order to obtain case-specific legal advice.